Cancel order. Take the handcuffs off. Alright, so let's write the ticket and go about it that way.
Sounds good.
All you're going to do is give her more ammo. Alright?
Yep.
So, write the ticket, just fill it out.
Meet Brittany Trevino, an ordinary mother from Texas going about her day, casually looking through her family's storage unit. Suddenly, the police confronted and arrested her under questionable circumstances. The reason for the arrest? Merely possessing a harmless pipe for CBD hemp. She moved on with her life, despite this injustice. She had no idea that the very officer who had arrested her would cross her path again. One fateful day, when it happened, her heart raced, and memories of her unjust arrest rushed back to the forefront of her mind. How did Brittany respond when a whirlwind of emotions engulfed her upon encountering Officer Akers again? In a quiet protest against the injustices she had experienced, Trevino took a rebellious action towards the officer, clearly frustrated. Brittany was stopped by the officer again, this time for a relatively minor charge of not signaling a lane change. But was this truly about a traffic violation? Or was she being targeted for her gesture towards the officer? And who emerged as a hero to save Trevino, an ordinary citizen, from harassment from Officer Akers? Join us as we uncover the truth and expose the flaws in the justice system. It's time to make some noise.
That I had a really bad experience over the last 2 years with this certain officer. I mean, I wouldn't just go around flipping off any cop. I would flip off Patrick Akers because of an arrest that he put me through in 2019, the beginning of 2020 it was. And then that just concluded last month.
On September 6, 2023, 3 years after their first encounter, Brittany Trevino drove past Officer Patrick Akers of the New Braunfels Police Department. Let's revisit what happened when Brittany Trevino first crossed paths with Officer Patrick Akers. On an ordinary day, Brittany was busy with her daily activities at her family's storage unit, completely unaware of the storm about to hit. The police came out of nowhere and arrested her under suspicious circumstances. The police had no evidence or probable cause to arrest Brittany. According to her, after searching her car and aggressively patting her down, they found a tiny pipe for smoking legal CBD hemp. The police turned that harmless pipe into a reason to charge her for drug paraphernalia, and she got arrested for it. Brittany was dragged into court over the charges. It was not just any court, it was a municipal court, which is mostly used to handle small violations like fines and tickets, rather than actual legal proceedings.
She was upset at being forced to defend herself in court on baseless accusations and being found guilty of the same pointless offense. Her time, money, and job all suffered as a result of the entire procedure.
She still remembered the unjust treatment she had received from the officer. So she decided to let him know exactly how she felt by raising her middle finger in defiance. She had no idea that this small move would lead to a heated exchange that was captured on Officer Akers' body camera. When the officers involved turned off their body cameras, Brittany turned on her own recording device, ready to capture every moment of the encounter.
Boy Charles Paul 5990, Boy Charles Paul 5990.
35, 256. If it's possible, could you make my location? PD 256. Put me at the 1049 of Gardenia.
35 on Gardenia.
Officer Akers claimed that he stopped Trevino because she flicked him off and failed to signal before changing lanes. In the significant 1989 case of Texas versus Johnson, the Supreme Court ruled that the First Amendment isn't just about talking or writing, it's also about how you act. Yes, they did say that nonverbal signs like gestures and behaviors can carry just as much meaning as words or written text. It suggests that actions, even without speaking or writing, can convey meaning.
The cop that arrested me for resisting arrest now has pulled me over for flipping him off.
Going.
I know who you are.
Okay,
I know who you are.
that's fine. Well,
You're pulling me over for flipping you off. Yes, you are. You are retaliating against me. You turned your sirens on and everything, ran over here like a crazy person.
Okay, well, ma'am, the reason why you're being contacted is you failed to signal lane change when you flipped me off.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead and step out of the car.
Please don't let, he's hurt me before. Please don't let him do anything to me, please. Please. Please, please, don't.
Texas's disorderly conduct rules prohibit obscene gestures in public. The U.S. District Court for the Western District of Texas clarified that such gestures must be considered fighting words and be prosecutable. In the 2015 case of Brown versus Wilson, the court ruled that giving the middle finger to an officer was offensive, but did not qualify as fighting words since it didn't provoke violence. Therefore, it's doubtful Officer Akers could legally stop Trevino just for flicking him off.
Blocking the lane I was in, so I had to switch lanes. And when I seen him, I flipped him off. He left his traffic stop and came and pulled me over. He said I did not use my turn signal.
In the 1996 case of Wren versus United States, the Supreme Court ruled that an officer's personal reasons don't matter if their actions are objectively justifiable under the Fourth Amendment. Thus, as long as there was probable cause for a traffic violation, Officer Akers' stop of Trevino could still be lawful, even if it was because she had flipped him off. But if she did signal when changing lanes, then the officer couldn't detain her. Officer Akers was capable of coming clean and saying that the stop was a pretext, and the body camera footage was not entirely clear. It's a tricky situation, and could the body camera footage reveal the real story? It would seem as though Trevino may have given a signal when changing lines.
So this is that female, Trevino. She flicks me off as I'm going back to back of my patrol car, fails to signal left hand to go into the left lane. She flicks me off, so I just wanted a second to make contact with her. How's it going? Officer Akers, New Braunfels Police Department. Okay.
I know who you are.
That's fine. Well, the reason why you're being...
over for flipping you off.
No, ma'am. The reason why...
You are retaliating against me. You turned your sirens on and everything, ran over here like a crazy person.
Okay, well, ma'am, the reason why you're being contacted is you failed to signal lane change when you flicked me off.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead and step out of the car. Step out of the car. I have 3 officers here.
He's hurt me before. Please don't let him.
Yeah, would you mind, Henderson, go ahead and detaining her?
Don't.
In cuffs?
No, because he's been illegal to me.
Okay, all right. You're under arrest for failed to signal lane change.
I'm under arrest for failing to signal a lane change?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm under arrest for failing to signal a lane change?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. You guys just know this is... You guys just know it is. You guys know it is. You're under arrest. Grab my phone.
Officer Akers made it clear that he was stopping her because she didn't signal when changing lanes. As the officers moved in to arrest her, Brittany expressed her fear and desperately pleaded with them. "He's hurt me before. Please don't let him do anything to me." Officer Akers then allowed another police officer to handcuff her. She observed that this officer was not aggressive towards her and appeared to be just following orders. Brittany had severe trauma from having her hands placed behind her back and from the cuffing. It was evident she was scared and stressed, and the thought of going to jail terrified her to the core.
I talked to the other officers on his way to pull me over because they had showed up behind him. He waited till they got out or started pulling up to get out of his car, and then he came up to me quickly while they were pulling up and getting out of their vehicles. And he had that conversation with me in the window, told me to get out of the car, and he told me to get out of the car right when the other officer, the least ranking officer that came up afterwards, he told him to put me in handcuffs. So I just turned around and he did put me in handcuffs. He was not aggressive or anything to me. He was fine to me. He was just doing whatever he was told. But he's the one that put me in handcuffs, and then Akers was going to have me transported by him to the jail.
Some states prohibit police from making arrests for minor traffic offenses. What about Texas? Does it give the green light for arrests, even for something as simple as failing to signal? According to the Texas Transportation Code, not signaling before changing lanes constitutes a misdemeanor. Officers can arrest people for breaking traffic rules if they have reasonable suspicion. Even if state law restricted arrests for minor traffic offenses, a court would likely say that such an arrest was okay if there was sufficient evidence. It's worth noting that the Texas Transportation Code normally imposes a $200 fine for failing to signal a lane change. In the Atwater v. City of Lago Vista case from 2001 and the Virginia v. Moore case from 2008, the Supreme Court ruled police can make probable cause arrests, even for minor offenses, without violating the Fourth Amendment. So, courts would probably support such arrests under the Fourth Amendment even if Texas law prohibited them. It's unclear that Officer Akers had probable cause to believe Trevino failed to signal. If a court decides he didn't, the arrest could be illegal under state law and violate the Fourth Amendment. However, if probable cause is found, the arrest would likely be considered lawful.
You want me to transport, or you think better?
Danny can do.
Danny, would you mind just transporting? You don't have to do anything else other than transport. I'll be there. PD 2V6.
Go ahead.
Can you go ahead and get me next rotational record? That female is in my custody. I believe it's going to be Brittany Trevino.
Good question. When in custody at 8:39.
Yeah, she has a driver's license, but
I'm gonna turn this off. No. Well, she comes down the street, comes right towards me. As I'm walking back by the car to do nothing, she flicks me off. And then as she does that, she gets on the lane, fails to signal lane change. You think it's going to be an issue?
Given your history, right?
Yeah.
So any other person you would write a ticket to, right?
Yeah.
That's how you have to treat every interaction. You would normally write a ticket to this person for this, just because that in the past you've done this, this, and this, right? This is something that you would normally write a ticket for, then let's write a ticket for.
The officer mentioned that the lady had a driver's license but didn't follow the rule. He indicated that normally they would write a ticket for such a violation. Then why the arrest this time? Could there be more to this encounter than meets the eye? Sergeant Scott directed Officer Akers to release Trevino, arguing that he couldn't arrest her for an offense usually punishable by a citation. Why this sudden change in plans? The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which oversees Texas, stated in the 2021 case of Oliver v. Arnold that a false arrest could be considered a violation of the First Amendment. In the 2019 case of Nieves v. Bartlett, the Supreme Court clarified that having a good reason usually makes it hard to argue about First Amendment retaliation during arrests. Therefore, Trevino's claim of a retaliatory arrest would probably be rejected if Officer Akers had reasonable suspicion to arrest her for the lane change violation. However, the court did agree that there is a risk when law enforcement officials have good reason, but decide not to make an arrest. This could lead to the abuse of power to silence speech. Could this loophole in the law allow officers to suppress free speech? It is possible. The court found that the standard requirement of having sufficient reason for an arrest does not always apply. This exception comes into play when there's evidence showing that someone was arrested for their speech, while others in similar situations weren't.
I didn't even realize what had been caught on the live stream until like the next day when people started commenting on it, because I just closed it and was done with it. But after I reviewed it, I did hear him say that he was taking me to jail for failure to use a turn signal. And then the superior officer, the sergeant, asked if he would do that to anybody else. And he said he would give a ticket to anybody else that wasn't me. And he said, so you got to give her a ticket too and let her go. And then he told them that they could let me go. And he went and sat in his car and waited for them to get his ticket for the turn signal signed, and then they gave it back to him.
When a superior officer questioned Officer Akers a few moments later, he made an astounding admission. The cop admitted that he had specifically targeted Brittany. If someone else had failed to signal a lane change, he would have issued a ticket. This admission highlights how simple it is for law enforcement to take revenge on those who criticize them.
This is where things become intriguing. Officer Akers said that if someone else had failed to signal a lane change, he would have issued a ticket. Could this admission turn the tide in Trevino's favor? There's a chance. This suggests that Trevino might have a chance to prove a retaliatory arrest claim under this exception to the standard probable cause rule.
You want me to go ahead and police you? Yeah.
Proceeding over the plate for Charles Paul 5990 for number 3, Volkswagen 4-door blue code.
PD 35, cancel order. Take the handcuffs off. Alright, so let's write the ticket and go about it that way.
Sounds good.
All you're going to do is give her more ammo. Right?
Yep.
So write the ticket, just fill it out.
I didn't mind. Yeah, I did.
Brittany, come here. Can you go way by the back of your car, please? So, right here, Brittany, this is going to be your citation. You're good to go. So I understand that you flicked the officer off. So my question was, did you flick the officer off?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing, right? Had you just gone on about your day, right? Your intense hatred is causing you to do other things that is drawing attention to you. I'm not here to debate this situation with you. I watched the video. I know everything that occurred. Okay? I know about the court stuff, everything that occurred. If Officer Akers had done anything wrong, he wouldn't be here right now. Right? That's 100% true. You need to move on and not be running around flipping people off. Right? I get it. That's your First Amendment. If you want to flip people off, but what it did is it caused you to create a hazard into a traffic infraction right in front of an officer. If you choose to be defined by what happened to you in the past, then you will always continue to be that person. Regardless of what y'all's history is, you need to move along with it. Right?
According to Sergeant Scott, issuing a ticket would be the most appropriate course of action in this case. Soon after, an officer approached Trevino and asked her if she had flicked off the other officer. She responded affirmatively with a straightforward yes. Sergeant Scott pointed out that her intense hatred was the cause of her questionable actions and advised her to move on from the incident. He made it clear that he was aware of all that had happened and wasn't there to argue with her. He stated that if Officer Akers had done anything wrong, he wouldn't be there at that moment. He then encouraged Trevino to let go of the past and move forward. Finally, after receiving a citation and a lecture from Sergeant Scott, Trevino was allowed to leave. What steps might Trevino take next? Very little information is available about this encounter, and it's unknown whether Trevino protested the ticket, made a complaint, or plans to take legal action. Overall, Officer Akers receives a failing grade for his reckless driving in his attempt to catch up with Trevino's car. He wanted to stop her, seemingly in retaliation for her First Amendment protected activities. He may have even fabricated a traffic violation to justify his actions. It appears obvious that Trevino's middle finger was the reason for the traffic stop, regardless of Officer Akers' belief that she neglected to signal. Furthermore, the Supreme Court ruled that pretextual traffic stops with reasonable suspicion are lawful. It doesn't mean that these detentions are appropriate or represent good policing. Even if a judge concluded that Officer Akers had a reasonable suspicion that Trevino had broken the law, she would still have a strong case for First Amendment retaliation. Is this type of police retaliation unjust? Absolutely, especially since Officer Akers publicly admitted to being biased compared to others who may have committed the same offense of failing to show signs before changing lines. The New Bruny Police Department must take the right steps to discipline Officer Akers. Which of Sergeant Scott's actions led to his C- grade? Well, He gets a C- because even though he stopped Officer Akers from arresting Trevino, he did so only after she had already been through the distress of being arrested. Plus, he turned off his body camera in an effort to challenge Officer Akers' actions. He placed the blame for the incident on her and advised her to change her behavior to prevent future problems with Officer Akers. He did not go far enough in protecting Trevino's rights, even though he kept her out of jail. Brittany Trevino should be commended for complying with the arrest while expressing her disagreement and recording the interaction. She clearly experienced emotional pain during both of her interactions with Officer Akers.
One of the biggest battles in ensuring police accountability is taking on the immense authority they hold. It is difficult for anyone to oppose them, as they can use the law like a weapon. Fighting back against the special powers vested in them is challenging. Making a mistake could lead to dire consequences. Brittany's story is a perfect example. It is just the tip of the iceberg.